loud and clear. Of course, this is the BroDiallo broadcast. I'm not supposed to be here today. If my understanding is right, today is some sort of U.S. holiday. What is today? What is today? Veterans Day? No. Memorial Day? Yeah, today's Memorial Day. What is the occasion? More honoring U.S. military died serving in United States Armed Forces. Well, listen, y'all listen to me. Because this is a problem I had with my brothers over at EYL. I don't believe in picking cotton at night. And so I wasn't supposed to be here today. I had no intent on being here today. And because today is Memorial Day, a federal holiday where we take off time to honor U.S. mercenaries who died advancing the interest of the empire, or however you name it, off. You know what I'm saying? And so when you work on days off, if you work on days that you could have had an excuse to take off, that's called picking cotton at night. And that's a term coined by the late, great Kwame Ture, who lamented Black people engaging in labors and work that, number one, you didn't have to do. Number two, do not serve you personally or do not serve your community. But anyway, long story short, I'm not supposed to be here today, and understanding that y'all got me here on a federal holiday, but I wasn't here last week because I was flying back from Baltimore last Monday. I was literally in the air at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I was way up in the air returning to Chicago. So I wasn't here last week. And then I'm working on this book review. I was editing this book review on my supercomputer that I resent using my supercomputer to edit book reviews because that computer should be for video games. But you know, and I don't like sullying my video game computer with real work. So, you know, I got a lot of problems. Nonetheless, Black Christo fascist all in my grill playing victim. But I got a lot of problems. Well, actually, I've been wanting to review Locking Up Our Own, but then I decided to try to cheat and squeeze in a book that's not really a book, more like a pamphlet, because I was just going to do it over the weekend to make up for missing Monday's show. I was going to do The Psychopathic Racial Personality by Dr. Bobby E. Wright. So I'm just doing both, edit them both, and post them both. You know, I got 99 problems, but eating dead animal flesh ain't one. So anyway, I've had an eventful couple of weeks. First, I must give my gratitude and appreciation to my wife, which pains me to say. Y'all know I'm a hater. But I got to give gratitude and appreciation to my wife. It ain't even that I'm a hater. It's just that a lot of times when you express publicly in public forums your love and appreciation for your significant others, sometimes that just puts a hex on your relationship. It seems like the better your relationship appears to be online, the worse it is in the real world, and vice versa. That ain't my reality, but it could be. I'm always hesitant to say anything good about my knock on wood if I was superstitious. But of course, Dr. Mingo showed up and showed out in support of Earn Your Liberation, Black Power Media, our first Earn Your Liberation live event, from getting the food and catering to moderating the event and navigating some pretty wild and bad faith actors, and checking everybody in, making everybody feel welcome, telling me what to wear and what not to wear, which ain't really her job, but she volunteers for that too. So shout out to Dr. Mingo and her professional capacity. So shout out to Dr. Mingo, Erica, if you're nasty. I don't know if I've done it enough. I don't know if I've given her enough gratitude and appreciation. So let me just heap all that out and get all that out of the way. And shout out to Baltimore. Shout out to everybody who, especially, man, if there was a heaven, I'd definitely put up a prayer for y'all. Or an ancestral realm. I definitely would put a cola nut on the shrine for y'all, if such a thing meant anything, because a lot of people donated to our Baltimore event that had no chance of going there, but made a positive contribution for other people to make it happen for others. So shout out to everybody who made just a donation and weren't able to attend. Shout out to everybody who showed up and got Dr. Ball out of his pessimism, because he was like 7 people gonna show up, and so we proved Dr. Ball wrong, and he was very gracious, and he was happy. If you ever seen a angry scholar smile, you missed out, because generally, he in them books, graphs, and charts, and he was very happy. I don't know if it was the beer or the turnout, but it don't matter. It don't fucking matter. Whatever it is, we saw an angry scholar smile, a bitter scholar, and in a good mood. So Baltimore was more than it could ever be. And I was really even thinking myself, this is probably going to be a grand opening and grand closing, because, who knows? I don't know if people really want to, reinvigorate and reinstitute African intellectual outlets and culture. Because when I was coming up, there was a whole community. I said this already. I'm saying it one more again. But Black intellectual culture was very powerful. I mean, I would go to lectures. I would go to debates. And I don't mean that Sonnetter shit, Moors versus the Hebrews. I mean, I've been to see Dr. Ben speak publicly, Professor Mackey, Professor Marimba Ani. I was even, I ain't gonna say that name, but I went to see that person speak too back when I was less enlightened. But Black intellectual book signings, debates, even like spoken word forums were less about, seeing who could spit the tightest verse, but really about people using language to articulate positions, pain, history in a colorful way. Black theater. I'm just saying that I came up when there was a vibrant Black culture, intellectual culture, and vibrant Black intellectual public life, and vibrant Black intellectual public figures. So you could go out and eat. We had the barbecues, we had the dance, we had the strip clubs, we had the biking and the bike motorcycle club. We had all of that. And I tell you, I remember one night I went to an album signing party, and I went to hear Dick Gregory come out of retirement at the Billie Holiday Theater. And I went to the club after that. I remember one New Year's Eve, I went to a Kwanzaa event at a local holistic healer and house, and we went to Kwanzaa, and then later that night I was in the club. So I don't know that this is a relaunching of it, but I know that there's at least a desire for African intellectual culture, as opposed to just ski-a-yeeing. I ain't gonna condemn you if you want to ski-a-yee or make it rain up in the club, but we need to reinvigorate our appreciation for, and our desire and our support for, intellectually stimulating events. African scholarship, African intellectual culture is as much an element at all as African food, African dance, African garb, African, communalism. It's a part of it. So thank y'all for doing that. I don't know. Give me a few more weeks, because I'm still in appreciation. I'm still riding off the high. All the haters. I told y'all I'm the hater innovator. I'm the hater facilitator. No haters greater. So you come and try to hate on me, and like I said, you can't beat me. So even the people who came out hating, believe me, you just added fuel to the hateration fire. And again, for people who do think that I ain't doing shit the way it's supposed to be done, your faith, your belief don't move me, especially if they're rooted in delusion and injustice. You need evidence or a sound argument. If you want to see me move, if you want to flip me to one side to the other, evidence and or a sound argument. Nothing more, nothing less. So, what am I here to talk about? But shout out to everybody. I always feel like I'm going to miss somebody. Shout out to everybody. Of course, shout out to Geechee, reluctantly. Shout out to Dr. Ball, enthusiastically. Shout out to, of course, the wife. I can't say shout out to shout out to Nomu. Shout out to TNAT, the Holistic Health Center and Restaurant and Community Space. Oh, shout out to everybody. Shout out to Baltimore. And there's some unnamed people that I'd like to shout out, but if I do a blanket shout out, I'd be giving credit to some people I don't deem worthy of credit in shout outs. So I'll have to learn their names and give them individual shout outs a little later. Anyway, that's it. That's it. I'm not wrong in Geechee. Geechee want to be halfway. Ain't no such thing as halfway right or halfway wrong. So, like I said, but shout out. That's my dude. That's my co-host on EYL, but we got some things to discuss. Anyway, what we're here to talk about is no, we can't all get along. And I want to talk about some shit that I thought was settled. I want to talk about some shit I thought we had already figured out. It's 2024. Halfway, damn near halfway through 2024, knocking on 20. We climbing up the ladder or going downhill to 2025. So there's some things that are harming our capacity to wage opposition, subversion, war against our oppressors and enemies. Geechee got his mug. Let me settle that dispute. Geechee got his mug. Geechee, I called Jared and Geechee, and I said, send me your address to send you a mug. And Geechee was like, well, when the mug gonna be? And Geechee was asking me extra questions, which got me, I'm a frail old man. Look at my beard. He got me confused, and I was feeling cold. So I just backed away. Jared just gave me an address. I sent it. It was done. But Geechee was like, well, when is it going to vibe? Because Geechee's a man on the move. I respect that. I envy that sometimes. He comes and goes. He's free. And so Geechee gave me an address, and then he told me it needs to arrive by here. And then he said he's on his way there, and then he sell it there. And it was going all over the place. So I just was like, I ain't sending nothing. And I went to my wife and I said, I asked Geechee for an address. He's asking me for deadlines and arrival times and shipping numbers. And so I'm just going to do nothing. I ain't sending nothing. She was like, fine. And then one day we doing the Earn Your Liberation show, and Geechee went and got a styrofoam cup. Geechee went and got a styrofoam cup and wrote EYL on a styrofoam cup and held it up to the camera. And he was like, now I got me a EYL cup like Jared and Diallo. And my wife saw that. And I walk out of this little corner. All I get is a little nook to do all my YouTubing. I walk out of the corner and I walk out. My wife's up front on her laptop and she looks up to me and like, you're a monster. You're a monster. Send Geechee a cup. And I'm like, what? And she was like, why don't you send him a cup? I said, I told you why. And you were like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. So anyway, long story short, she got him a cup. She got on my back. He got his cup. And I don't know where he is. His cup and him are always in separate towns. I don't know if he's even met his cup. But anyway, that's it. So the Cupgate 2024 has been resolved peacefully. So anyway, I want to talk about something because I'm going to do this fast and I'm out of here. We're going to be out of here in like 20 minutes, 30 tops. First of all, unity fallacies, because I got people for some unknown reason coming to me, talking to me about unity and principles and all that stuff. And some things I'm figuring out, we still got some falsehoods about unity and things we don't understand, especially unity in the context of Black unity as us unified as a community, us unified as a race, us unified as a movement. And we're under the false impression that number one, Black people ain't unified. And there's another false impression is that number one, our disunity is the source of our oppression and colonization and enslavement. And number two, our disunity is the obstacle to us if we can't come together as a people. Therefore, we can't get things done. And so Black people have this mythological relationship with unity. Now, I've said all this before, and I guess nobody, but y'all don't hear me though. Because here I am having to say it again, because people like, we got to be unified. And our misunderstandings and misinterpretations of unity have a lot of Black people being taken advantage of and exploited, or worse, I don't know if this is worse, but wasting their life and time energy. So let me tell you one thing about Black people. As far as the unity scale, when you look across races as a race, African people have a respectable level of unity. a workable level of unity, a level of unification that would be the envy of other races, even races that exploit, oppress, and hold greater amounts of wealth. We're under the false impression that white power is a byproduct of unity, and black power or black powerlessness is a byproduct of disunity. I say this, I don't know why I have to say this again, but we sat back and watched these people fight civil wars, world wars, more than one world war, and ongoing. We see them try to form a pan-European union, and it goes up. We sat and watched white people look down and financially exploit the cradle of European civilization. No matter where you find a white person, they will say Greeks, the Greeks and Greek civilization. Greek letter all over the white academics, they have Greek letter organizations because they see Greek philosophy, Greek civilization, Greek history as the root and the launch pad for all Western European culture, philosophies, economics, religions even. Greco-Roman Church is the syphilic monster mother of all these sects of Christianity. And so, and Greeks, Romans, Western Europe, Knights of the Round Table. We sat and watched Greece just a few years back go through a complete economic collapse. And not one Western European country came to the rescue. While the Greeks were out literally lynching black people and leaving black people to drown in the Mediterranean Sea, because whenever white folks got a bad problem, as Mackey said, when white folks get a cold, we catch the flu. And they always scapegoat us. When the European elite exploit the European masses attack any vulnerable group within arm's reach of them. That's always been their history. Even if it ain't no black people around, they'll attack their women and burn them at the stake. They'll attack the disabled. They'll attack religious minorities. And if there's everybody's of the same religion, they'll attack people of the wrong faction or sect. If everybody's a Christian, but you're a Protestant. Oh, we're all Protestant, but you're a Calvinist. You know? So that's how they do. That's where we are right now. White folks are suffering from capitalism, and they're attacking everything but capitalist. But anyway, so all I was to say is throughout their oppression, the Dutch and Portuguese were the first people to come and get us, enslave us, commit genocide. And then the Spaniards came, got a late pass. And then the French and the British and then the Germans came later than all of that. And they beat the shit out of each other. And they were bombing each other's ship at the same time they were beating the hell out of us. And I don't know where this illusion that white people hand in hand, unified and coordinating and cooperating, went hand in hand across the globe to conquer the world as a unified race of people. Never happened. In fact, most white people that we know today weren't even classified as white. Go find out when the Irish got their white card, or when the swarthy Spaniards, or the Italians, the olive-skinned Italians. Go ask the average white person when the Roma's still working on their white card. When are the Roma people going to get their white card? So we think that white people are more unified than they truly are, and think black people are less unified than we truly are, because we are misinterpret what unity can and cannot do for a people, whether they are oppressor or oppressed. And it ain't just the oppressors or the colonizers. Look at the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese were fighting a civil war the whole time they were fighting the French and the U.S. armed forces. It was a 3-against-1. You had the communists fighting the Vietnamese nationalists, their own people. It'd be your own family. It'd be your own. And the French who passed the genocide baton to the U.S. Same thing, the Iraqi insurgency. There were dozens of factions, and they were telling us about it. The Kurds, the Shia, the Sunni, and then the Baptists and the anti-Baptists. The whole time they were fighting off a U.S. invasion with a successful insurgency. There were several fights internally. Same thing in Afghanistan. Same thing in Afghanistan. There were several factions fighting within Afghanistan. In fact, everywhere you look, Korea, anytime there's been an uprising or ongoing resistance, look how many factions are fighting in China. Look at all the fighting in the various Chinese provinces, the territories. They all beating the shit out of each other at the same time they're fighting the oppressor. And you'll never find a Chinese, a Vietnamese, the Native Americans, even, and there is, y'all don't know about that. There's an ongoing Native American genocide. Like I said, bless this dude's heart. I don't remember his name. But I remember when I went to this protest, this solidarity protest between Friends of the Congo and the Palestinian Solidarity Movement. And we went to protest at this giant Apple store. And there was a guy there that everybody on the Palestinian side knew was a long time anti-Zionist activist who said, I just came in from Oklahoma. I flew in from Oklahoma for this because this is one of the most important protests, and we blockaded the store. Couldn't nobody get their Apple devices that day, at least not at that store at that day. And I'm like, damn, because I came up, the Lakota area. I've been up in those reservations, food drives, and taking them fans because they were living in trailer parks with outhouses. I was living in an American ghetto on food stamps, and I'm taking what little bit resources we had out to Lakota country because the Native Americans saw the way I was living as luxurious. So I'm thinking this white dude got to fly over half a dozen genocides, flew over more than half a dozen internment camps, concentration camps. Dale Jones said, don't call them reservations. Reservations is what you get at a hotel. They're concentration camps full of Native Americans. There's an ongoing Native American genocide. We saw them up in the north, the water protectors that were fighting those toxic pipelines, and U.S. Federal troops went and people were protesting and had blockades in sub-zero temperatures, blockading in open weather, and they sprayed them with water hoses to give them hypothermia, killing them in the most painful, savage way possible. And this dude had to fly over genocide to protest the genocide of the hour. So anyway, even throughout their ongoing factions, just look at the story of Leonard Peltier and the goons, the goon squad. So even though Native Americans been bumping heads with each other, the 5 civilized tribes who were all armed and sanctioned by the U.S. that were attacking all the other resisting natives. But my point is, everyone who becomes subject to capitalist imperialism, white hegemony, to a group, you will find factions and internal disruptions and even internal armed conflict against those populations. And all those people seem to grasp and understand that even though we got our internal disputes, we got our internal problems, we got our internal fights, civil wars and factions. Hell, even when it's white people fighting other white people. You had the czarist, the monarchist czarist fighting the communists in Russia, and then amongst the communists and the Mensheviks and the anarchists. So you had factions all fighting, and they were beating and literally fighting, fist fighting, debating and arguing and calling each other out, denouncing and mocking each other. Communists were being exiled by other communists. Even at the time, they were still banging on the czar. So I'm saying that all that to say that you will not find those people saying, well, the czar, the Nazis, the imperialist British, the imperialist Dutch, the imperialist French. You will not find them saying, well, we ain't unified. That's our problem. Because we're not unified, that's why they attacked us. We ain't unified, that's why they colonized us. We ain't unified, that's why they're stealing our resources. Our community needs to understand, like these other groups, that there will be factions, there will be internal conflicts. There will be necessities to identify internal disruption, internal enemies, internal bad actors, and deal with them before, after, and during our liberation struggle against the systems and institutions of white hegemony and capitalism. And that does not delegitimize our struggle. It does not delegitimize our stance. It does not make us worthy of enslavement. It does not make us worthy of any of the atrocities leveled against us from the past, presently, or in the future. That is not the source of our oppression, and it's not. Unity is to be valued. It is to be sought after. It is to, when you secure it, it is to be cultivated and preserved. But it is not the be all end all. And there are many things that we are sacrificing in the name of unity because we're under this oppression that our disunity somehow makes us unworthy of freedom. Our disunity makes us vulnerable. And our unity will save us. But that is a myth. It is not across any human struggle. Go find me a unified struggle against a unified people. We don't understand where unity comes from. We don't understand when we do have it. We have so much fucking unity that we allow to be squandered, that we allow to go to waste. And we waste our unity. And instead of understanding how much we waste our unity, I know you ain't saying this because I can show you factions. They are not a unified people. That's an anti-Semitic troll. They all stick together. And they used to say that about us. You can't trust a black because if you got two blacks in one room, they'll immediately start working against you. They'll immediately start working against you. So Dr. Ben, who used to get frustrated about black people's mystification. Oh, sorry. I appreciate it. Yeah, be more Akuma. Yeah, you're being sarcastic, right? I appreciate that because that is a comic anti-Semitic trope. But so many people say that when they're not in jest, that you never know. You never know. But anyway, Dr. Ben would always say, "What is the unity figure?" If you say, well, we can't fight, we can't do this until we're unified, we must do this before we need unity. He's like, you got it. What are the metrics? What percentage of black people need to come together under what conditions and terms? And what needs to be their geographic space? How close to in proximity do we need to be? How much aligned do we need to be? What specific things do we need to have aligned? And so everybody would say, and I say this all the time, this is my 1,000 times saying this, I've never been in a gathered room of black people and somebody didn't stand up and say, we ain't unified, we need to get unified, we need to be unified. But number one, two things I never heard. One thing I never heard is somebody stand up in a gathering of African people and say, I offer unity. Anybody, whatever you got going on, if it's in the interest or advancement of my people and our struggle, I offer unity, just holla at me. These are my particular skills. This is my availability. These are the resources I have at my disposal. And you need me? I'm here. I'm available. Holla at your boy. I'm going to go sit in this corner, northeast corner of the room. Nothing else to say. Appreciate, love you all. I offer unity. Everybody says we don't have unity. We need unity. I've never heard that word stated. So at the next meeting, if you are the guy or the sister that shows up and says, hey, we're not unified. This is our problem. We're not unified. Don't say that. Get up and say, I offer unity. Give your specifics and go sit down. And then the second thing I never heard anyone do, even though I always hear the unity, is nobody ever defining or specifying what unity they're talking about. They never do. So I would say, because I've seen revolutions where less than 1% of the population are identified as revolutionary, communist, anarchist, and they're able to move the whole society. Sometimes it's not even a full 1% of the population. Some people say, well, you need about 5% of the population to influence the whole society. But then there's a difference between reforming, transforming, and upending and subverting a society. We all understand from the Occupy movement, for the few of us that remember that the 99% are ruled over by the 0.5% of 1%. Got all the resources. So if you needed unity for hyper exploitation and accumulation of the collective wealth of humanity, you only need 1%. So if only take 1% to rob the wealth from the masses, what percentage of the masses does it take to redistribute the wealth? And then you have to ask the different types of unity. I've gone over this before. You have to go to the BroDiallo broadcast. But then there is one type of unity that we have, and that is what I call imposed unity. Or as Gil Scott Heron called it, the unity of the barbed wire fence. The unity of the barbed wire fence. Meaning that is unity from outside groups impose on you. So women, whether you a soul sister or you a beach blonde, bad built butch body, women under sexist or patriarchal society all suffer from it, no matter who or what, no matter what your if you are identified as a woman, a girly girl, a career woman, girl boss, even if you're a transgender feminine, even if you are a lesbian, women, everybody, all women are unified, have unity imposed on each other because they're all mistreated. I remember years ago when I used to do this radio program. I was a co-host on this radio show, and this radio show had a budget. And whenever we had a guest coming on, they would send out these announcements. So-and-so is coming on the program, tune in. And so whenever they do that, I would just make it my profile picture. This is years ago, like 7-8 years ago. And one time we had this sister who was a Chinese medicine specialist. She did Reiki, she did acupuncture and all this stuff. And they put her on there, appearing on the radio show in 5 days, the date and time, and it had her picture prominent. So I made it my profile picture. And a lot of people just assumed when I was just navigating the internet that I was a woman just by looking at my picture. And I could tell you for that month, less than a month, like 2.5 to 3 weeks that I had that picture up, the internet interacted with me completely different when the internet saw, and brothers, if you don't believe me, get a gender neutral name. Just change your name on any of your social media profiles. Change your name. Do this experiment. Change your name on any of your social media profiles and put a picture of a woman as your profile pictures, and then just go about the internet as you normally do. If you comment on sports, if you talk political stuff, if you on there talking about your Lord and Savior, no matter what you tend to discuss or talk about on the internet, just put it on there and see how your experience on the internet. And hey, let's say, okay, I know racism is real. Get a bleach blonde, bad built, and get a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan white woman as your profile picture. Get an agent, whatever woman you want that you think is less likely to be a victim of sexism. Just try it and see how your experience. But I don't know. Let me get off of that. What I'm saying is, as a black person, I don't care if you Bill Cosby, whom I hate his guts. I don't care if you Oprah Winfrey. I don't care if you're the wealthiest black or the poorest black. Every single black person is subjected to racism, anti-blackism, anti-Africanism. Even if you got good hair, even if you light-skinned, it does not matter. So you have all these different groups: disabled people, LGBTQAI people, poor people. They are all unified, even though they don't like each other. They don't get along with each other within that group. The people outside that group that have the ability to impose their will on that group basically impose unity on that group. So I go somewhere and they be like, look at that black dude. And I'm like, whoa on day. I ain't like them other blacks. I ain't with it. You can't opt out of. So you can't opt out of that type of unity. As a worker, all wage employed workers, and some of these groups get huge, outnumber the people abusing them by the millions or billions. So that's imposed unity. Now that unity can be worked with. Race first, class consciousness, gender. But the problem is, it's easier to identify these imposed unity, but because within that group there's so many dispersed and diverse agendas, values, and a lot of the people within that group, a lot of people internalize, a lot of women internalize sexism and misogyny, a lot of black people internalize the racism, you know, a lot of queer gay people internalize the homophobia. A lot of poor people internalize capitalist propaganda. If I work hard, if I would just stop sleeping and eating and drinking so much water, I could get rich. So even though that is the broadest scope of unity and one of the easiest unities to be in externally imposed unification, it's one of the hardest to organize around, and often takes some large-scale societal upheaval to even begin that. And the moment you get all that group to realize that unity, from the day one, the flicks and the flakes start coming off. So you have imposed unity. Closely related to that unity is fixed unity. Unity that doesn't necessarily change, whether the political, economic, social climate shifts one way or another. You in that group, that's the group you in, and there's no opting out. But then you have the transient unity. And it could be because we're unified for this particular movement, this particular clause, this particular event, when black people all come together to rebel because the police commit some atrocity and it's on tape, and the cop walks, and we'll go protest, we'll go burn and break shit, we'll do boycotts. So you got the transient unity, which most of us have been a part of. You have organizational unity, meaning that, well, I'm part of this organization, and I don't even know people in this organization, and people I'll never talk to, but they got these lists of protocols, standards, requirements, dues, and things of that nature, and I'm following it along. So it's a dude on another side of the planet that I'm united with. I'll never know or meet them because we all in it together. We're all in it together now. We're going to make it more better now. So a few things that we have to understand. There are different forms of unity that occurs for different purposes, and they are applications of unity. And the main thing take away from this about unity is that unity, quality outweighs quantity. It's better to have 5, 3, 4 people organized for a conscious and deliberate purpose, a liberationist purpose, than have 1 million people organized around a delusion, or a falsehood, or a lie, or a demagogue, or cult leader. You have to focus on the quality of the unity. You have to focus on elements of the unity that I will get into in a moment. Unity, these are components of unity. When you're unified with someone, these are things that you have to align with the other people on: strategy, methods, priorities, trajectory, outcomes, hierarchies. These are things that must be agreed upon. There are certain things within unity. It's not enough that we all love each other. That's somebody that's trying to manipulate you. When somebody says we have to get unified and you can't ask questions, say, what does the unity require of me as an individual? What does the unity require of us as a collective? What can I stand to receive as an individual? What is required of me? And what can I stand to return? And as far as my community, what will my group receive, and what will my group be obligated to give? And that you might be a part of several groups. Sisters, if you join a Black liberationist organization, you'll say, well, what do Black people get? What do mothers get? What do women as a group get? You can ask in any organization. Now, there's 2 answers to that. Oh, it's worked out, it's clear, let us lay it out for you. Or this is an oversight. This is not something we're aware of, so we'll have to construct. What are the benefits of adherence to the unity? What are the consequences for breaking the unity? Anybody telling you to do it for the love or do it because it's right is trying to play you. And we've all heard, I could do bad all by myself. It's true. You can do bad all by yourself. But the inverse of that is true as well. You can do good all by yourself. So I could just be a good person without interacting with anybody or going on this thing camera and talking to anybody. I could be good. But because I'm doing something collective, the moment you're asking things of other people and other people are asking things of you, the goodness of it is just one component. And anybody say, do it because it's right, and they're talking about a collective or group thing and a collective or group organization, they're trying to fucking play you. They're trying to play you. If someone is saying, we require you to give of your time, talent, and resources, it is appropriate and necessary to say, what are the benefits of contribution? What are the consequences of rejecting the unity? And if I accept the unity and I break it at a later date, what are the consequences for that? And if you are a person that is articulating or arguing for unity, you should have that worked out. Go work on it now. This is not a game. Unity is a valuable component of any struggle. It is not a given. It is nothing you should guilt people into or try to have people to have faith in. It is something, it is a material reality that should have material conditions related to it. It is not inappropriate or wrong for anyone to question the unity, to doubt the unity, to seek to negotiate the unity in the terms and conditions. If a fucking phone contract or access to a goddamn app, if an access to an app can lay upon you terms and conditions, then somebody telling you to give your life for a struggle don't want to give you terms and conditions. I have been unified. I have held to unity. I have broken unity. I have sought to expand unity. I have contracted unity. One thing you have to stop doing is tying our internal unity or disunity as an excuse, a justification, or explanation of our condition. That is not appropriate, and it often isn't accurate. If the lack of unity was a justification or even an explanation for the condition of our people, then Europeans would be the most oppressed people in the world and be the most impoverished, because they, as a group, as a culture, as a race, have demonstrated the least enthusiasm for and the weakest ability to create and hold to unity amongst their own. And again, I'll challenge you to find a successful or admirable or notable revolutionary struggle where those people engaged in that liberation or revolutionary struggle did not have internal conflicts. So no, we can't all get along, and we don't need to get along, and our inability or unwillingness to get along with each other is not a justification for our condition. Unity has been turned into one of many panaceas, and we have to avoid panaceas in our liberation struggle. Revolution is an intellectual endeavor. Revolution is an intellectual endeavor, and if you cannot provide or subject what you are involved in to successful radical analysis, you should leave it the fuck alone. Even the most mundane and seemingly obvious things like unity or blackness and pro-blackness. The things that seem to be most obvious that you take for granted should also be brought under scrutiny and critique, and it has to be revolutionized and radicalized. It's not enough for us to be unified. We need revolutionary unity. We need radical unity. We need secular unity. We need socialist unity. We need Pan-African unity. Simply black unity. If you say black unity, then Barack and Michelle Obama and the black billionaires and the black reactionary and the black evangelicals and the black conservatives. There's a whole bunch of blacks that can jump in a black unity box. I'm not rooting for everybody black, because everybody black is not secular, revolutionary, Pan-Africanist, socialist. There's certain things I cannot compromise. Black environmentalist. Some black people look at this world as a way station and thinks that humanity should be able to hyper exploit the resources of the world and drive any creatures in our way to extinction. And they want to be unified. You can't unite with me with that disposition. There are real black factions. There are many black people who, like myself, hate oppression, who oppose white hegemony. But in that conclusion, that's where we depart. And it is not enough for you to be like, yeah, these white folks, and yeah, we need to get the white man off us. I'm like, okay, yeah, once he's off, who's getting on? There are black people who want to free us so that we can go into an Islamic theocracy. There are black people who want to free us so we can go into black monarchies. There are black people who want to free us so we can go into black-owned, black-controlled, multinational, corporate, black elitism. There are black people who see our freedom as Armageddon and the end and explosion of all life. So simply wanting to free us, everybody has a different, and you need to figure that shit out before you unite, before you lock arms with these people. There are many black factions. And another thing, white folks told lies to us and they told lies about us. And we accept and we fight against the lies that are told to us and so embrace the lies told about us, or we fight against the lies told about us and we embrace the lies told to us. It is often said that the black man, racist, even some Thomas Sowell, black people are driven by their emotions. If you want to appeal to the Negro, you must appeal to his soul, appeal to the black man's emotion, appeal to the black man's soul. You can't appeal to his intellect. You'll lose him. If you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. Black people are so caught up in celebrity and fashion. And we begin to treat each other that way, as though those myths about us are true. Begin to believe that those myths about us. We are a spiritual people. And we sit back and watch people from the Hindus to the Christians burning each other and hacking each other to bit over their gods. And we think we're the religious people. Yo, you can't reach black folks unless you go through God. Because the white man comes every 4 years into our community and talk to these goddamn pork chop preachers. And the more progressive politicians even go talk to the imams, and we get caught up in thinking, well, if you're gonna have a movement in our community, it's gotta be spiritual. You gotta open it up. And we see shit that ain't even work for the people who taught us how to do shit, and we trying to do shit. So I do believe that you can appeal to our African people's ability to reason, their thirst and value of knowledge, facts, articulate to them and speak to and engage our community as a bunch of adults. Stop believing the lies that were told to us, but more importantly, stop embodying the lies that were told about us. So anyway, I want to speak about one more thing, because this is something else that's been told to me that I think we need some clarity on. I want to talk about secrecy. Since my first day, I joined the Black liberation struggle at 14 years old, and I've been in several organizations. I've been a member of the Block Brothers Club. I've been worked with the Simba Non Fulani Rites of Passage, the National Black United Front, the Sons of Man, which was basically a revolutionary cult. I should talk about my short time in a secular cult. Wild times. You know, I've been a rank and file member, a grunt. I've been a founder or a co-founder. I've been a leader. I've been in movements throughout. Things that, that engaged in formal politics and grassroots organizing, and some organizations that did it all. And there was always this discussion about secrecy. You can't talk. Shh. And a lot of times when I would see people talk about secrecy within the organization, it was more out of a fantasy than it was about the reality of our condition. So the first thing I want to share with everyone when I talk about secrecy is, believe you me, I understand, and I hope that after we discuss this, you will understand the value and necessity of secrecy within formations. I'm not talking about personal secrecy. I am a firm believer in individual rights. I support individuality. I support intimate and personal privacy. I'm not talking about that. What you get into, what you get off on, if it is not predatory or targeting other people, I believe that you should be as personal, private, and quiet as you want to be about your shit, and I'll be about mine. I'm not talking about that personal secrecy. I'm talking about secrecy in the context of Black organizations and Black formations. One thing I want to share with you was this phenomenal book, which you can get free online. I'll share it in the thing. That's page 18. But it's called Bits and Pieces by Sundiata Occult. And Bits and Pieces talks about talks about a lot of things. You just got to go read it. I don't want to get into it because I know I'll get derailed. But this is another pamphlet, right? And it really amazes me that people that can say a lot in a very small space, because I don't have that capacity. So I hate on, and I both admire and hate on people that can say a lot in a little. But anyway, basically, there's one section of this pamphlet where he talks about things that the Black Panthers did right and things that the Black Panthers get wrong. I don't want to get into this list. I actually went over this. I could do a formal review of this, but I want to share this one thing before I talk about secrecy, and then we're going to get up out of here. Can y'all see that? I don't know how much y'all can see. Let me zoom in. There's this one thing that he said that the Panthers did wrong. The second thing, negative aspects of the Black Panther Party's contribution. So he first talked about the positive aspects. And number 2 on that list is combined above and underground. So when you have an organization or you're organized, you have above ground and underground factions within the group. You have people doing public work and people doing subversive work. I don't have to get into detail, but he said this was the most serious structural flaw of the Black Panther Party. Party members who function openly in the Black Panther Party offices or organize openly in the community by day might very well have been the same people who carried out armed operations at night. And then he goes into detail about the myriad of problems. I'm saying that to say I greatly understand in revolutionary and liberatory movements the need for secrecy. But I think the abuse of the need and understanding of secrecy, and I talked about this a little before, I'm just going to go into a little deeper, and I'm going to go into this a little deeper. I'm going to first talk about justified secrecy. Because if you join an organization and the organization says to you, yo, as you elevate within this group, as you advance and navigate this group, you're going to learn and see a few things that you need to keep within these walls or within the walls of your cranium. Y'all want me to share the link to that? I'll share it at the end so y'all don't leave me. I don't want y'all to get the link. So let me tell you about the justified secrecy within Black formations. If you are in a Black formation that is in open revolt, engaged in guerrilla, asymmetrical, extra-legal activities within that group, there should be secrecy. You shouldn't even talk about the group. There should be no uniforms, no colors. That it should be clandestine. And you should not be organizing or mixing with Black liberation people who are not within open revolt. You should not be keeping the company because you endanger yourself and other people. That's one. So if you're in open revolt, which looks different at different stages of the struggle or different regions of the world. But if you know an African person yourself who is in open revolt against the state or institutions of the state or institutions of oppression, you have a right to expect secrecy, call for secrecy, and impose secrecy on the people you work with. If you are infiltrating, if you have a job, have a role, have a position within a government, state, police, because I knew cops. I'm not even going to say, but I knew people that were part of groups or had jobs where they would go in and come out with stuff. If you are engaged in infiltration or open revolt, if you are part of a group that is seeking to protect vulnerable people. I once knew this sister, she worked at a battered women's shelter. So it ain't even got to be revolution. She worked at a battered women's shelter. And they would have women from, like, this is years ago. So the women in Kansas would be sent to the mission in Missouri. And the mission in Missouri, the shelter in Missouri, would send women to Kansas. And even sometimes, depending on who the abuser or the predator was, they would even send them as far as beyond Wyandotte County into what do they call it? Topeka, Kansas. So if you're working a job where you have to keep secrets in order to protect vulnerable people, and that's a vulnerable individual or a vulnerable group, or you're trying to protect a vulnerable secured space, or even if you're trying to protect a vulnerable agenda, you yourself and those involved with you have every right to tell you to keep it close, keep your mouth shut. And then what determines secrecy is the relevance to non-affected parties. So if someone can say, listen, these people are on a need to know basis, and these people are on an information blackout or lockout of this group. So those who are asking you to keep secrets based on non-affected parties, this information is not relevant to these people. These people are not deserving or worthy of this information. This information will make vulnerable people or spaces or genders vulnerable. I am not for telling. If the telling hurts the agenda, hurts but if you were in that circle of secrecy, it should be articulated and explained to you. If you're not a trusted person if you can't be trusted with the explanation, you shouldn't be trusted with the secrets. It's like, listen, you think I'm worthy to know the information that shouldn't be shared, or the locations or any data or intelligence that shouldn't be shared, but I don't have any rationale or reason. Now, allow me to speak on things that are not guarded or protected. And what I see sometimes, secrets are established for the purpose of theatrics. Secrets are established for the purpose of theatrics, meaning we don't want people, we want to appear to be more coordinated, more organized, more solidified than we actually are. So we want to give a false representation of ourselves to the public. That alone. Now, if it's in the context of asymmetric warfare, open revolt, and we want the policing or military opposition to be confused, we could have a much bigger force than they know, but we want to appear very small. We could have very complex and intricate weapon systems, but we want them to think we only have bricks, and we don't want them to know our capacity. Now, that's not theatrics. That's a strategy and tactics. Theatrics is just that, for the purposes of putting on a show. Nothing more, nothing less. False solidarity and a false united front. I think that that's not appropriate. For the purposes of egos, well, if this got out, or people know, it would make me look bad, or I won't look as strong, or I won't look as, our organization or the individuals are more likely than not our leaders. To protect bad actors. People are doing bad. You can keep secrets if it will protect the vulnerable, but you don't keep secrets if it will protect or shield the bad actors, the liars, the thieves, the predators, the abusers. And then finally, it is not appropriate to keep secrets for the sole purpose of controlling other people. Take it as you will. The reason I felt compelled to share this is because, again, there was some confusion about what should or shouldn't be kept close. And I see Black people. I actually used to read a lot of FOIA requests, and I would read a lot of whistleblowers. And the whistleblowers and people in the intelligence industry would always say that the people that would accumulate and hold secrets were the most vulnerable people. They were the most vulnerable people because if you were a reservoir of secrets, then all they got to do is deal with you, turn you, or do something else with you. And if you held it, it dies with you, or it gets locked away with you, or it gets turned or compromised when you get compromised. They said the people within the intelligence apparatus, the whistleblowers, the people who expose states and multinational corporations, the ones that put it out there were the ones that was like, well, it's out there. And then if we did something to this individual, it could pretty much bolster or reinforce their legitimacy. So there's just a lot of confusion. A lot of people want to imagine that what they hold is precious, or it makes you part of a secret club. But I think within movements and organizations that I've been in for all these years, I went down the list of several. I didn't even name half the organizations I've worked with. The vast majority of the secrecy was unnecessary. It was unnecessary. If you out there shoulder to shoulder with Harriet Tubman, then shut the fuck up. But if you on the campaign trail with a local alderman and you see some inappropriate shit going on, you should probably let the community know, if not let the people within the organization know as they're coming and going. I think we get confused, and I think ultimately many of the secrets in our organizations, in many of these cults, they harm us more than they harm our enemy. And they don't tend to harm our enemy at all, or deny our enemy. So anyway, I told you this one's going to be short because I have some other things I wanted to talk about. But again, it's a whole holiday, and y'all got me picking cotton at night. So I'm going to have a very brief question, comment, criticism. This don't look right. What am I doing? I don't know what's happening here. There's some weird shit going on. Anyway, let me share that Sundiata link. I don't know if it's going to take you there, but go read bits and pieces. Or I just might do a review of it, but this is a very classic work. Let me go back to the beginning. If you have any questions, comment, criticisms, please let me know. And hopefully we can move on, proceed amicably. I just shared the link to bits and pieces. And I got what I was talking about was on either page 18 or 19 of the text. So I'll share the link. If you have any questions, comments, or criticism, we're going to keep it short tonight because if I get into this other topic, because I really want to speak to people talking about what about Congo, what about Haiti in relationship to the airtime and consideration that the struggle and the atrocities in Palestine are getting. And I want to answer that, what about them? Because to me, the answer should be obvious, but I understand why it isn't. And there's a lot of confusion and pain around that. But I don't want to get into that, even though that's what I was going to talk about tonight before I learned it was a holiday. I was out this afternoon. I'm like, why are all these people out? Something's going on, and somebody doing something they ain't told me about. But anyway, I've shared the what's up? Namdi Question, comment, criticism. Welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast.
It's good to be back, bro. How you doing? As always,
I'm well. Appreciate you.
hope your family doing well, also, man. Like always.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody's good so far.
that's good. Well, my question is because you're talking about unity, um, and I agree with like everything you're saying. Um, my question is like when you bring up like unity for like unity's sake, right? Um, so my question is like how do because I do understand we got like these supposedly revolutionaries or what I call like want to be like revolutionary rock stars, but they're not. You know what I'm saying? They don't really hold. A lot of them don't really like hold the interest of like African people, like to like the level it should be. They it's more like they trying to look for something. So my thoughts is like, how do we actually be able to create like dialogue and actually sit down with different ideological differences and be able to hash it out to be able to get us to the point where we understand like the mission but understand where we're heading, if that makes sense.
Well, the thing is, I all you can do when it comes to sitting down with people with divergent positions, views, ideology is offer the invitation and arrive in good faith. You know, I've had very levels of success. I used to have study groups and public discussions on various topics, and I remember at one time, um, I called out for this event, and a bunch of Hebrew Israelites showed up, and they were basically promoting this idea that the United States is on the verge of divine retribution and internal collapse, and that the only people who were going to survive the coming calamities had to move to Israel. And one of my waitresses at my restaurant at the time had gotten a large inheritance from a grandmother, and just liquidated everything she inherited and spent it all to move to Israel, and several other families. I know that some families had couples had gotten broken up or gotten divorced because one was like, we're going to get rid of all our material possessions and just move to Israel and live on the beach and watch Armageddon. And so I said, let's dialogue. And it was one of the most pointless and fruitless dialogues in the room. At least I was thinking at the time. I'm like, what was the point of talking to these people? And even though the leadership to this day, they show up and kind of hound me and stuff to this day, but there were people who weren't part of the discussion, but overheard the discussion and was like, man, I, I was the idea that we're the chosen people and all the suffering we've been going through was not for nothing, or not just based on the evil whims of man, but there's some greater meaning to what we went to as a people. And I was very vulnerable to that shit until you were talking to them and they were really, and you pushed them to really say what they want and explain themselves. So a lot of times when you get into dialogue with these disparate groups, a lot of time the dialogue might resonate with someone who's not even part of either group. So, but if you say, how can you sit down? You offer the invitation in sincerity without any type of larger type of gotcha or agenda to tear them down. But let's say, let's have this dialogue. And sometimes it's fruitful for yourself. Sometimes it's fruitful to both of the people engaged in the dialogue. Sometimes neither people engaged in the dialogue really get moved or gained, but third parties or people who listen in on it. But that's how you do it. You simply offer the invitation in all sincerity, and then just do your part from there.
Okay.
And don't have any expectations besides articulating the evidence-based facts and positions.
Okay, because I mean, I'm I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist since I mean I was 20. I'm like 38 now, so I'm just getting over my religious indoctrination and whatever. So when you talk about like circular, right, and you try and like and when you try to be like rational, and when you try to like really um articulate your position, and people take it as like you attacking them, like you trying, like you're not attacking them, but you're attacking the like the argument, or the, I guess you could say, the structure that they're holding on to, and they take it as if like you attacking them personally, but you're not. So like how do you engage that? Because it's like I have moments where it gets like really hostile, and people are ready to almost like fight. And so I'm trying, and I agree with what you said, like just come in at it in like good faith. But what do you do if
I remove
people?
myself. I remove myself. First of all, um, I prefer to target institutions, but sometimes individuals will make themselves the spokesperson or the public face of a movement or institutions, and I think it becomes fair to attack that person. So I will attack Puritanism, reactionary black ideology, empty militancy. But if you have an individual who is all three of those things and also professes to be the prince of Pan Africanism and the embodiment and guardian of black on black love, I think it's fully appropriate to call out Dr. Umar as an individual, as a person. Yvette and Tony, or Tone, whatever he goes by, I think it's fully appropriate to attack ADOS and them, FBI and Tariq Nasheed. I think it is appropriate to target Christianity, but anybody that is evangelical, spreading the word of Christianity, speaking for their God and defending their God and their faith, then that person makes them. I'm a vegan. I can hear people talk about veganism and critique and criticize veganism and make fun of veganism and not take it personally. But as someone who owned a vegan restaurant, who ran a vegan catering company, and who even was brought out to give public talks about veganism and the vegan values and vegan lifestyle, if someone comes and says, well, and Diallo, look at him, oh, scrawny, Bugs Life looking guy, if they want to attack me personally as they go as vegan, in some ways it would be appropriate. So, this is not, you know, um, I think we're kind of caught up in it is a dance. It's not a perfect science. So if you're not attacking someone personally, I think it's good to inform them that, hey, this is not personal to you. As I talk about the institution of Christianity, the history, the dogma, the teachings, the impact of Christianity or Islam, I'm not talking about you. But if you are so identified and aligned with it, if you say, well, what happened to Africans is justified because the light of Christ was shined upon us. So if it took us being enslaved to receive the message of our Savior, then we should have been enslaved, which I've heard. Then I think you pretty much, the gloves can come off and you can call them a goddamn idiot, if not a handkerchief head ass coon.
Okay.
I got called out publicly for making fun of Yvette Cornell's hairline. So, I'm not. I think it was fully justified and inappropriate. There's some people that came at me and said some raggedy shit, and they won't apologize, and I'm not even looking for them apologizing. What you need to be focused on is the accuracy of your analysis. That's number one. If your analysis is accurate and you're articulating it in the interest of advancing and sustaining our struggle, then I would say keep moving. But if someone can articulate to you, hey, this is subversive or detrimental to our efforts, then that's when you have to, and it's a reasoned argument, or they can provide evidence for that, that's when you have to go back to the drawing board.
Okay, one more question, and I'm ghost. Or when you, so like, about like and revolution is an intellectual endeavor. Do you think like we need to like read everything, but also understand like what other people read, so we could like be able to have them like intellectual, or like those cultivation discussions where we can all get on the same page? I'm not saying we get on the same page with like people who just don't really want to be on those pages, but being able to like read certain works that other people read, so we can be able to have like certain discussions or be able to build bridges with people that we might, I guess, we have to work with.
I don't know if I understand the question. Can you put it in one sentence?
That's horrible. I'm at okay. I'm trying to. How is there a way? I guess I'm trying to find a way to put it in a smaller sentence. Is there a way ideologically to get on the same page through, I guess, reading the same scholarship?
No way.
Okay.
I've had people read the exact same scholars, the exact same books as I read, and arrive at completely different conclusions. I've had people read shit and arrive at better conclusions than me. I've had people arrive at more clarity than I got from a book. So just all of us reading the same books. I read the Bible and it was an absolute, catastrophe for me. I only became an atheist because I tried to become a sincere Christian. In my adolescence, I got baptized. I began to read and study the Bible diligently and go to church and listen to the church elders. And if I hadn't done that, if I was just a casual Christian, I would probably still be a Christian. So some people read the Bible or claim to read the Bible and it strengthens their faith. Me reading the Bible obliterated my faith. And then I started understanding, religious history, the actual history and relationship to African people and Christianity and Islam. And then I thought, well, even if I lose Christianity, Islam is there waiting to embrace me. So no, just reading the same book. But that's why reading is just one component of intellectual cultivation and development. You have to commune, you have to exercise and apply some of the ideas and theories and practices. You have to challenge yourself, and you also should be challenged by others. But getting on the same page is fortunately not really necessary. The struggle, depending on what level or where you engage the struggle, you can work with people that you have fundamental disagreements with. I've had all of my life. I've had good and healthy working relationships with people that I don't see eye to eye on everything with. Some people I disagree with, that we should cultivate the community and grow organic food in our communities. That's all we agree about. They worship God. They eat meat. They like to drink alcohol, and they do all kind of shit that is just dumb. They like sports and they follow sports. They do all kind of shit I don't do and I'm not into, but we agree on this fundamental fact and we agree on how to advance this particular agenda, and that's it. Everybody doesn't have to go all the way with you. Okay. That's why solidarity is and understanding having various pockets of solidarity are necessary.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you as well.
All right.
Have a good evening, bro. Okay. Thank you everyone for waiting. We're going to try to speed run this. West Bank Bell, you're live with BroDiallo broadcast.
Peace, brother.
Peace.
Hey, so maybe this is like a question / comment along the lines of the unity discourse. And that's something that really dominates a lot of the spaces we're in, whether we're in church, a masjid, or the barber shop. And I think it's just in general, maybe it's, the conversations that all oppressed people have, this idea that, we all need to be, one and unified and and that's the only way things will correct themselves, sort of thinking. Is it by now, do you think it's more of, is it like, I'm starting to think if it's more of a conspiracy or some shit that's really built into us? Because anytime that people try to, when you're having these conversations, it's like we're stuck in this mode of people trying to say, hey, yeah, if we all don't get along, then we can't do nothing, right? And I'm telling you, man, like all the organizing that I've been involved in, when you're talking to some of the folks in the community that are just dealing with the material conditions, and there's no real ideological commitment, like that's where everything starts, right? And that's how they push back against you, like, man, I'm fine, I can't get involved in this, but I know everybody else won't. Like, how do we, and maybe you touched on this too, but like, yeah, how do you get past that conversation in general? Like, that's what stops everything for me personally.
Ah, man, y'all, these questions, because I be trying to extract the questions. Yeah. So I'll say this. When it comes to Black people being oppressed, or any oppressed people, you have three classifications of the population. You have the people who resist the oppression, who submit to the oppression, and people who coordinate and cooperate with the oppression. Those who resist the oppression, those are the population that you unite with. Those who submit to the oppression, those are the ones you seek to educate and inspire. Those who cooperate or coordinate with their oppressors, those are the ones you have to define as internal enemies and traitors, and fight against them as you fight against the external force.
Perfect.
And I'm not sure I answered your question, but when you were talking about us getting along, we don't have to get along with anybody.
Right,
Everybody.
right. Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. Like that's what really takes up a lot of the room anytime that we're engaged with people. And I'm sure, like, you've been in those spaces where that's where everything starts and ends. It's like,
yeah, well, that's at least the initial engagement. But a lot of coordinators and cooperators pretend to be resistors. A lot of people who submit pretend to resist, or they often are duped into coordination or passive support of the system. So those lines aren't that clear, but you can, at least for the conscious people, that's the whole point of consciousness and uplifting people's consciousness. Consciousness does not simply mean you're going to be a good person. King Kong consciousness. Just because you're conscious does not mean you're righteous and good. Consciousness means you understand who you are, where you stand, and your relationship to the environment around you. That's all that is. And some people can use consciousness to manipulate that environment and to manipulate others and take advantage of others. Some people can use their consciousness to help others to gain consciousness and understanding. Some people use their consciousness to motivate, inspire, and sustain them in resistance and transforming themselves and transforming their environment. Mm-hmm. So you have to be conscious, and consciousness is not a permanent or fixed state. Consciousness is something that you have to cultivate and sustain, and that you should be growing. So if your consciousness today is the same consciousness you had a decade from now, then you weren't really conscious,
right,
or woke, or whatever the word for it is.
Right.
I hope I was able to answer. I got a few people waiting.
Oh yeah, so for sure. No, I appreciate it, bro. Thank you.
I appreciate you too, West Bank. Esme, welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. Question, comment, criticism.
Hi, Diallo. So I did want to make just one comment. I started talking to a guy who's vegan, so now I kind of have to learn some recipes. And another thing is, you mentioned talking to those who disagree. Would you see yourself having a conversation with like Yvette or ADOS or foundational Black Americans? Yeah.
I don't really think much can be gained from that. I much prefer to just critique, because I don't see it as valid. I much rather debate people who are trying to do good but may need some clarity. Like when they came out with, I've had a couple of debates on people about entrepreneurialism and reparations. And I think that they really want what's best for our people, but I think that their analysis isn't sufficiently radical, revolutionary, or expansive enough. But I'm not to say that I wouldn't be willing to, but I'm telling you, it wouldn't be sweet and it wouldn't be nice, because I think that it is an offensive value system. It is an offensive agenda, and it is a wholly offensive thing. So I would engage in discourse or debate with them if I thought it would be fruitful to do so, but I don't think there's any room for dialogue. I mean, this woman literally said Pan-Africanism is dead. And that's her point of view. And to the extent that it's not dead, she's interested in killing it. And she said she wants to be made white. There's certain ideologies and movements that are not really that have no credibility or legitimacy.
I definitely understand. And also just thank you for, not being hostile towards us Black immigrants. I'm Haitian American, so but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you
My
for
only problem with Caribbean
response.
immigrants is that y'all too critical of how we eat mangoes. I've never been able to enjoy a mango because they say I leave too much meat on the mango. And and that's my main problem living in New York. And I'd go get a whole bushel of Haitian mangoes, which were my favorite. And people are like, yo, you don't know how to eat a mango. If y'all would just stop your mango supremacy, I think we could all get along better and resolve most of our issues.
Okay. Have a great day.
All right, sis. Oh, Aisha, welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Question, comment, criticism?
Can you
Hello?
hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I hear
Hi.
you loud and clear. Yes.
Oh, yes. I have a very quick question for you. I grew up in northern Nigeria, and it was
Uh-oh.
predominantly Muslim. I family. Um, so I definitely want to engage politically, but from my observation, especially now that I'm atheist, it doesn't seem that I am allowed to engage. But I feel like there needs to be a conversation because the northern Nigeria has been left destitute. It seems to me that the whole agenda now is the Arabization of northern Nigeria. How do I assert myself in terms of just being political?
Are you currently in northern Nigeria?
No.
Oh, good. Thank goodness. Um, I think being, like I said, as vocal and telling people about your experiences while you were in Islam and telling people about the reality on the ground, the various atrocities committed by Arabized Africans and the funding that they're getting from various oligarchical Arab and Islamic oligarchical factions. So just exposing and articulating that, because unfortunately here in the West, because we were enslaved by Christians and we've been under the boot of Christians, many Africans of the diaspora, especially under Christendom, see Islam as a resistance and positive alternative to Christianity. Just as I noticed that I would talk to many Sudanese people who were being, assaulted by the Janjaweed and the various factions, Islamic factions in the Horn of Africa. They would convert to Christianity as resistance and seeing Christianity as a liberatory theology. So I think your personal experience and your transformation is, and for lack of a better term, a wonderful testimony on how you arrived at. So just articulating your experience, I think, is very valuable to the community and to many other people still lost in that delusion and of Islam.
Thank you very much. I'm not really sure how to go about it. I don't know if you
Maybe
can
you have my
help.
contact info.
Yes, I do.
So send me a message. Maybe we can dialogue on how to, because I do
Sure.
think you are a reservoir of a lot of valuable insight as it relates to Africa and Islam, which I'm even having trouble in that arena.
Great. Thank you. I will reach out to you.
I
I appreciate you. Thank
I'm
you.
gonna look for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Roman, you're live with the BroDiallo broadcast. Question, comment, criticism?
Hey Diallo. First off, thank you for talking about this FBA ADOS nonsense, because I just recently had an argument with someone over the same thing, and they were saying that I'm not African simply because I was born in America, and that was kind of it. So thank you for setting that straight. I really do think that an international dialogue needs to be had. And leading into that, I live in a predominantly white city in Austin, and I am thinking about setting up some kind of meetup for Black people who want to talk about this, to have these kind of conversations, non-hostile, very, you know, just free. Just have these serious talks, but have them be, you could say revolutionary, or just a way we can talk about it and not come to each other's throats. Because I truly think there is a manufactured divide between people in America and the rest of the diaspora, because it seems like people outside of Africa, African people, have an easier time at least having a dialogue. Whereas in here, it's like you question someone's mentality and it's just you go into a back and forth and it never ends. So I think, so my question is how would I get started with something like that? Kind of similar to, I guess, Aisha's question. I would like to get politically oriented and engaged with the community of Black people, but I'm in a mostly white city and most Black people in East Austin. So how would I get started?
Well, you have to go to where they're at, because even if it's a relatively small Black community. I remember when I first started organizing in Kansas City, where it was a relatively small Black community. One of the first places I went to hand out flyers and to do outreach was at the local pond in Swope Park. If you in Kansas City, remember all the cats with the flyest cars used to cruise up and down. They used to cruise up and down Prospect, but then the racist pigs cut that off because some white city council member complained about Black people slow riding through our own poor, impoverished communities. So they went over to the lagoon at Swope Park. So I went over there. You can go to sporting events, cookouts, and sometimes you might even have to go to the local Black churches. You have to go to where the Black people are. You have to start where they are and work with what they got. So you have to make your presence known amongst the small community. And if there is, regardless of small or large Black communities, and a lot of times, because I've organized in Black metropolises and I've organized in middle America where small Black communities, having a small community is a lot easier to navigate. So what I would first advise is find out what the small Black community has. What are some of the popular places, some of the popular outlets, and when you make yourself known and make your presence known amongst your community, you can start to put feelers out, and then you can start inviting people out. Or if there's already an established place where Black people gather, you can go to that and say, listen, I've got some ideas and things I'd like to share with the larger community. Can I use your space? And people are actually very receptive. Small businesses or other gathering groups or even churches. You'd be surprised how many times I've been in a local church or mosque talking about everything from veganism to African history and liberation. They're very receptive. And when you plant those seeds and then you begin to grow, you can start establishing more independent or separate spaces from the ones that are there, if the ones that are already there are not receptive to the larger message of liberation.
Yeah, I've been told about going to churches. I didn't know what to think about it, because when I listen to your talks about religion, they kind of greatly influence me. I don't really know if I want to get involved with those kind of talks. But
well, the last time I was working with a minister, it was because they had plots of land that they needed growth on. So I went through the church, got access to land, and I was growing and cultivating organic food and teaching the community members organic food. Then there's two different churches. Well, the pastor has since passed away, but there was one pastor and then another pastor who basically attempted to establish a garden. So I didn't go to the worship service. I didn't go in any way to participate or validate the religion. But that's where the Black folks was. And that's where some resources or untapped or underutilized resources are. So I'm anti-religion. I'm not anti-Black people. So even though I see my people in religion, if that's where they at, and if, like you say, and if you're working in a very small community, that's generally where you'll find Black people congregated. And I have to tell you, religious people, which has happened to me several times, have no problem coming into our spaces to spread their message and to recruit our people. I had everything from theater groups to political action groups and to the gathering I just had in Philadelphia with Earn Your Liberation. We had some religious nuts come up in there to proselytize and defend and assert their Christ. So I think turnabout's fair play. If religious people can come up into our spaces to advance their agenda, I don't think it's a strategy. As long as you do it respectfully and peacefully, I don't think it's immoral or wrong to walk up in there and find if there's receptive ears for your agenda and message.
That's very insightful. Thank you for that answer. That gives me a
All
lot to think about.
All right.
And shout out to Philadelphia, because that's where I'm from.
All right. Shout out to Philly. All right. Peace. The Move organization. Q, you're live with the BroDiallo broadcast. Question, comment, criticism.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
How you doing, Diallo?
I'm well.
That's good. That's good. I'm trying to make it quick. I have two questions. The first question is, you talked about you not making it personal when you're talking about religion and how it's more focused on the institution. And I wanted to know, do you use that as a prerequisite as far as like, this is what I'm not talking about. This is strictly just about the institution. This has nothing to do with you. And list off your critiques. And then the second question is, based off that, do you point them to possibly other churches or whatever that are structured better? It might not be perfect or whatever, but you're like, here are examples of other religious institutions that are making the effort towards more radical ways of thinking and going about doing what they need to do.
I'm not sure I'm clear on the first question. The second question is no, I wouldn't direct anybody to any church, even a church that is professing to practice liberation theology. I can't, in good faith, pun intended, direct someone to any type of faith-based organization for organizing or working. Now, if they were saying I need housing support or food resources, and there is a religious organization there that's giving people shelter, giving people food or other supports, because even when my mom was when I was a young child and my mom was homeless, one of the local mosques provided us with shelter. So if there's some material support they need there, but when it comes to liberation or organization, no, I couldn't justifiably point them in the direction of any faith-based organization. Our liberation and our organizations must be secular if they are to be legitimate and effective.
I guess what I mean by like pointing them to another religious institution is by like company putting that like parallel to your critiques, because I feel like a lot of time is wasted going back and forth about what it is and what it isn't, as opposed to being like, and I'm not even necessarily saying you, sometimes I catch myself in this, and it's not even just specific to religion, but having something that I can point to, like, hey, they're practicing, or this is someone that's doing it better. You get what I'm saying? Like, if the issue with church is like patriarchy, hierarchy, you can point to another church like, hey, they're structured differently. This is probably something you can look into, because this is aligning with our liberation, our freedom, not necessarily the religion itself, but what it's boiled down to, the understanding of in order to get to where we need to be able to critically analyze these systems that are oppressing us. You get what I'm asking?
Yes, but I think my position remains the same. I have not seen any type of religious formation that I would feel comfortable pointing someone in the direction. And if such a religion did exist, or
That's
such a group or gathering of religious people did exist, I think they would come out as secular. I've worked with secular people of faith who engage in revolutionary work, but none of them have done it through their church. And everybody we know who does become conscious or revolutionary while holding to religious faith, often the organized church or the church religious hierarchy always turns against them. Martin Luther King was not supported by the black church or the black clergy. We know what happened to Malcolm when he went against his cult. We also understand that you look at Latin America and the famous liberation theologists there, the Catholic Church often coordinated with the juntas and the established dictatorships to undermine their own clergy. So most of the time, when you have a conscious or revolutionary person who also adheres to some type of religion or faith, they come to us for refuge. We can't go to them for refuge because they're part of an oppressive infrastructure.
And
it's rooted in oppression. So generally, the opposite is true. They have to come to the secular revolutionary community in order for refuge. We never find refuge amongst the established religion or faiths.
That's fair. I guess, and maybe this just might be my algorithm or whatever, but it seems like socialism, patriarchy, communities. These seem to become more buzzwords nowadays. I don't know if it is for the rest of the majority, but I guess being able to capture what's going on now and be like, hey, let's look at these terms and see where it measures up with the church, and I guess critique it there, and take. But like you said, because I don't want to put it on you, like you have to look for it, because I haven't found it either. But I think that's I guess that's something to I guess that could be work on my part that I can do to where I can I guess offer something.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but that's akin to the argument of the good capitalist. What if a capitalist makes millions of dollars and then wants to fund the revolution? And even before P. Diddy got exposed, there was a viral tweet where some sister was talking about suggesting what Jay-Z and P. Diddy could do with their billions of dollars to help advance the revolution. But it's understood by most socialists that for a capitalist to be an asset to his people in the struggle, they have to engage in what is called class suicide. Yeah. And it's very clear. But we don't have that same conclusion about theocratic suicide. So we're under the false impression that you could be theocratic or religious in your orientation and be an asset. But we understand that about capitalists. But what's weird about that is theocratic oppression, religious oppression, and religious institutions have been around hundreds of years longer than capitalism. They even predate monarchies in many places. So I don't understand why we think, oh yeah, a religious person can wake up and be revolutionary, but a capitalist can't.
I think it's because that's where the masses are. Like you get like a handful.
Yeah, I think you touched on something. It's because the religious indoctrination goes even deeper than capitalist indoctrination.
Right.
Where even revolutionary people are scared to call it out or try to work around it.
Scared to call what out?
Yes. Call out theocratic indoctrination. Even people anti-capitalist, everybody can be cool to be anti-capitalist, but it's wrong to be anti-theocratic because of how deep the indoctrination went. But let me tell you something. If you think a capitalist oligarchy is bad, try a theocratic oligarchy or theocratic state. It's even worse than capitalist, to the point that even the enslavers who committed genocide on this country were even like, oh no state religion, that's bad. I mean, I'm a slaver, I'm a genocider, I'm a capitalist, but hell, I'm not a theocrat. Shit, it was even too bad. Even George Washington was like, I'm not that fucking evil. Right. So yeah, I think theology and people's religious belief, they like to make it personal, but ain't no such thing as making it personal. You cannot join one of the most entrenched and powerful institutions and the very founders. The church invented propaganda. And you want to pretend like, oh no, I just have a humble, individual, peaceful relationship with God, where these churches are extracting billions of dollars and harming millions of people across the world. Please. Ain't nothing personal about it.
I guess when I think of personal, I guess I think of that individual person's contribution to what might become something revolutionary or radical, whatever term.
Yeah, I think that people do, but here's the thing. Every good religion person we know throughout history, if you look at a person who's well enough in their faith to where we know them, like Malcolm X or Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, or even the historical figure, even if you think Martin Luther and his Protestant Reformation, any religious person you deem good, you'll notice that the established church was hostile to them. Any person of quote unquote faith that engaged or supported a revolution, the established church went against them. To be a good person, you have to be a bad Hindu. To be a good person, you got to be a bad Muslim. And I know people are very uncomfortable with hearing this because, like I said, it is so entrenched and so universal. And if you overcome all systems of oppression and you leave theocratic institutions intact, you've made little to no progress. Even if you get rid of capitalism and even some of the biggest and first opposition to even communism was the church, the clergy.
Do you think if there were more experienced, I guess you could say orators, or just more people experienced in, and I guess the ideology that were inside these churches, that it wouldn't be as hostile, the response to looking at how can I put this? Like, I think it's one thing to go in there by yourself and try to not even necessarily convince people, but point something to someone else.
I don't bother people in their holy spaces. I'm not necessarily saying you are, but I wouldn't do that. I respect them more than they respect me in actuality, even though I'm accused of not respecting people's faith.
Right. I'm not even necessarily saying you're going in there deliberately or whatever. I guess what I'm saying is, if there was more of more people involved in that struggle, to where it's like, it's not just singling out one person and that can be the person to point the finger at, but it's like, we got 5-6 people here where if you have questions, we're able to help you and guide you through these concepts and these understandings of what we're talking about, because that person can be the Christian or whatever, could be just as much important a part into what we're striving for. Because it seems like, and I'm not saying you, it seems like people go into these situations and deal with it on their own, and it kind of feels empty a little bit, because it's like the majority is kind of like you said, it will stigmatize them, as opposed to there being a group of people where it's like, hey, if you want to reach out and get more understanding, here we are. We're not forcing you, but if you want to look at how it is, if you're hearing these buzzwords and you have questions, we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I would have no issue with that, but I don't think you need to go to the church for that.
The church for that, okay.
But
that's fine.
Most people who have faith were indoctrinated in that faith from childhood. And indoctrination makes you immune to evidence and facts. The story of religion is one of the most absurd things. Most established religions teach literally there was magic in the past and there was magic in the future, but there is no magic right now. And in order to benefit from the magic in the future, you must believe and accept the magic of the past, even though there is no evidence of magic right now. That's the sell. So you literally have to disrupt your normal thought patterns, your capacity and willingness to reason, to adhere to that. And even if it did nothing else to you, if it didn't take your money, if it didn't tell you you were born in sin, if it didn't tell you that your problems can be solved by mumbling on a carpet, if it didn't do all that other shit, if it did nothing but that, I think it's worthy of our condemnation. Because the human mind and our ability to reason is what defines us as human. And anything that disrupts or delegitimizes or calls on us to abandon or turn away from that, it dehumanizes us.
That's fair.
So it goes much deeper than that. I'm not really an atheist. I am an atheist, but I am also an anti-theist. The oldest institutions of oppression and longest lasting and most well entrenched is the Abrahamic religion and the various world religions, including Buddhism and Hinduism. So it's somebody got to do it, and I wish more people would do it, and I do it a lot less. If we could, more of us do it.
As far as condemning,
challenging, mocking, critiquing, denouncing, take your pick.
That's fair. I guess yeah, that's fair. But that's all I had to ask. I appreciate you taking the time.
All right, appreciate you. Yes. All right. I want to respond to Allison Sampson's. What are your thoughts on Deruba's call for a united front against fascism? I think that is a necessary call, and I am humbly grateful, immensely grateful for him to make that call, because conditions are ripe for yet another global scale murder orgy, World War I. As I said, when white people become victims to white elites, when the white masses become victims of white elites, they attack vulnerable populations. I just would caution that many people who are sympathetic, if not all out, to fascist ideologies or engaged in fascism, make sure they are not part of that united front. So, but yes, all people should be anti-fascist and engaged in anti-fascist action. I fully endorse that, and I will join that united front. Would you work in a coalition of real Flomo, would you work in coalition with liberation theology-based churches working towards the same goal? Depends on the goal. Like I said, I would work with a church if they had land they wanted to cultivate organically. But I think that liberation theology is an oxymoron. That's like sexist feminism, liberating slavery. The word religion, literally, if you break it down, means to bind you. So I think the term liberation theology is about as real as God or the supernatural. It is another myth. And again, I know that there are liberation-minded people who believe. I know I have friends who believe in God and who also want to fight for religion. But I don't even always feel necessary to point it out to them that a lot of things that they're doing in their fight for religion is in direct violation to their God and their dogma and their holy books. I was just confronted by a woman who believes in Christ and believes in the Bible and who is a Christian, and she was challenging me as a woman in a public forum, which I fully think women should be allowed to speak up in public places and challenge men wherever men they deem necessary. But according to the very religion she was defending, she was in violation and sinning. So she's going to be in hell right next to me, still fighting for her Jesus, because a woman is not to confront a man under such circumstances, according to the religion she was advocating for and I was attacking. So a lot of times when you see a religious person or a theocratic person engaged in liberation action, if you go to their text, if you go to their holy books, you'll see that their liberation action is in violation to their very theology. So they cherry pick or they pick and choose, because slave must honor thy master. If you are a black person and you are engaged in rebellion against your master, then you're also in rebellion against your Lord and Savior. So to go forward, to deem women as anything other than property and your children of property and disobedient children being worthy of death, how do you have a religion, a male chauvinist murder cult, and engage in true liberation actions? When we heard, how do people 200 years ago could conclude a religion is the handmaiden of conquerors? How do you let primitive men arrive to more succinct and clear conclusions about religion than we do when we got we got supercomputers in our back pockets, and men who had to read from scrolls were able to come up with more cogent and accurate assessments about religion than we are today? So I'd be willing to work with liberation theology based individuals. I will work with religious or individuals of faith. I don't see myself ever working with an established church or an established religion for a goddamn thing, unless it's something like I said, to work on their land, to cultivate gardens, to clean up a filthy lot or something. But it's very limited of what I'm capable and willing to do with an oppressive institution. Anyway, thank y'all for joining me tonight. I wanted to end early because, like I said, today's a holiday. We all supposed to be off the clock today, federal holiday. Anyway, but I know I had a deficit because I wasn't here last Monday because I was flying into Baltimore. Thank you to Baltimore. Shout out to my co-host on Earn Your Liberation. We had a successful shout out to our moderator, facilitator, caterer, Dr. Erica Mingo. And Erica, if you're nasty, shout out to my beloved. And shout out to everyone who supported. And we still got some unpaid deficits from that. So please continue to like, share, subscribe. Help me in those algorithmic AI streets. Like, share, subscribe. The BroDiallo broadcast with your friends, lovers, enemies, homies, cousins, and uncles. You can make a contribution to the BroDiallo broadcast. You can become a patron. You can CashApp, you can Venmo. There are ways to help sustain this programming and programming of this nature. And I truly appreciate y'all. And no rational radicals until next week. So I guess I'll be seeing y'all Friday. Next Monday, we're going to talk about whataboutism and genocide, oppression in Palestine. So please tune in for that. And I appreciate all my callers and people who typed in questions. If I missed your questions, it wasn't for lack of trying. So continue to engage, and I'll get you next time. Peace.